Have you ever wondered if there's more to the Quran than meets the eye? You know, like a hidden layer of meaning, a structural code sitting just beneath the surface. Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating analysis that suggests there is a numerical key that seems to link two chapters with completely opposite messages. One is about salvation, and the other, total ruin. And it all comes down to this one number, 1049. Now, I know what you're thinking. It looks totally random, right? But according to this interpretation, it's anything but. It's actually a key that unlocks this profound connection, like a signpost hidden in plain sight for centuries. So, this is the big question we're tackling. Is this whole number pattern just a wild coincidence? You know, our brains are great at finding patterns where there aren't any. Or is it a deliberate code? A kind of divine architectural blueprint that maps out the two most fundamental paths a human life can take? Okay, before we jump into the code itself, we need to understand a really important idea in Quranic studies. It's called munasaba. Think of it as the art of seeing the big picture. It's the study of how all the different chapters and verses connect, thematically, linguistically, you name it. The core idea is that the Quran's arrangement isn't just a random collection of texts, but that the order itself is part of the message. All right, so the first piece of our puzzle is Surah Al-Asr, chapter 103. Now, this chapter is tiny, one of the shortest in the entire Quran, but don't let its size fool you. It's considered to be this incredibly powerful, concentrated blueprint for living a successful and meaningful life. And to give you a sense of just how important this little chapter is, get this. The legendary scholar, Imam al-Shafi, made this incredible statement. He said that if the entire Quran was lost and only this one chapter remained, it would still be enough guidance for all of humanity. I mean, that's a huge claim for something that's only 14 words long. And here, this is where things get really interesting. This is where the supposed code starts to reveal itself. The chapter is built with this incredible precision, based on its word count. The first verse has just one word. The second verse has 4 words, and it states that all of humanity is in a state of loss. And the third verse, it has 9 words, and it lays out the only way to escape that loss. You see it? 149. So what's in those final 9 words? Well, it's basically the 4 essential conditions to flip the script on that state of loss. You need faith, you need to do righteous deeds, and, this is key, you need to encourage each other as a community towards both truth and patience. That's it. That's the blueprint for success. Now hold on, because right after that beautiful, concise blueprint for salvation, we get chapter 104, Surah Al-Humazah. And the vibe could not be more different. If the last chapter was the solution, this chapter is a stark, chilling portrait of the problem. It's a deep dive into the character of a person who is absolutely destined for ruin. And wow, it does not pull any punches. The chapter kicks off with this incredibly severe warning. There's no room for interpretation here. It immediately sets this tone of absolute condemnation, and it's aimed right at a very specific type of destructive behavior, the kind that just tears people and relationships apart. The chapter goes on to paint this really clear picture of this person. They slander people. They're obsessed with collecting wealth, just counting it over and over. They have this deep-seated arrogance, thinking their money will somehow make them live forever. And their final destination? It's described as al-hutama, which literally means the crusher, a fire so intense it crushes the very soul. I mean, just look at this when you put them side by side. It is striking. The 2 chapters are perfect mirror opposites. On one side, you have faith in something bigger than yourself. On the other, it's just faith in your bank account. Constructive action versus useless hoarding. Building people up with truth versus tearing them down with slander. Patience versus arrogance. It's like a choice between 2 completely different ways of being. Okay, you ready? We have the blueprint for success and the portrait of failure sitting right next to each other in the text. Now comes the moment where that 149 pattern we saw earlier allegedly connects everything. This is where we crack the coordinate. Because the theory here is that the 149 structure isn't just some neat literary device or a cool pattern to notice. No, it's something way more functional. It's a precise coordinate, a kind of GPS reference embedded right into the text, pointing the reader to a very specific location. So how does it work? It's actually incredibly simple. Let's take the 1 and the 4 from the 149 pattern of Surah Al-Asr. Put them together. What do you get? 104. And what is chapter 104? It's Surah Al-Humazah, the very next chapter, the one that perfectly describes the consequences of ignoring the blueprint. All right, so what about the last number in our pattern, the 9? Well, you're probably one step ahead of me. How many verses are there in chapter 104, this portrait of ruin? Exactly 9. The number of verses that detail the character and the terrible fate of the person in loss. So let's put it all together, because this is the aha moment. The 149 word structure of chapter 103 literally forms the coordinate 1049. It seems to point you to the exact chapter number and the exact verse count of its thematic opposite. The blueprint for how to be saved appears to contain the built-in coordinates for what happens if you don't follow it. It's just an incredible claim of deep, meaningful structure. So, okay, that's a mind-bending literary puzzle. But what does it have to do with us, right now, in our world? Well, this is where it gets a little uncomfortable, because this interpretation suggests the code has a powerful, modern message. It holds up a mirror to our own society, and maybe puts us all on trial. I mean, seriously, think about it. Is our precious time, the very thing Chapter 103 swears by, just being drained away by an endless stream of notifications? Is our public square defined by upholding truth, or by gossip and slander that goes viral? We obsessively count followers and likes. Isn't that just a modern form of hoarded wealth? We share strong opinions without the patience to actually learn about what we're talking about. The parallels, they're pretty hard to ignore. And so that brings us to this final, haunting question. The Quran starts this whole section by taking an oath on time itself, framing it as the ultimate witness to our lives and our choices. So, looking at our society, looking at our own lives, which chapter's story is being written? Are we living on the path of faith, good deeds, truth, and patience? Or have we become a reflection of that portrait of ruin? The code, whether you see it as divine design or just a profound literary masterpiece, forces us to ask,